Let's pray together. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, our beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, and saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Great Masters, guide our lives. Let us feel your presence in every moment. Let us feel your infinite joy. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Kamal. So, I would like to apologize for the technical glitches we had till now, and we'll chant till 7:50. Then we'll meditate a little bit till 8, and then we'll start our discussion on quotes from the autobiography of a yogi. This chant is called I am Om. The words are I am Om, I am Om, I am Om, I am Om. Omnipresent I am Om. All pervading I am Om. All blessed I am Om. Om, Om, come to me, oh come to me. Divine Mother, come to me, oh come to me. Omnipresence I am Om. All pervading I am Om. All blessed I am Om. Om, Om, come to me. Come to me, oh come to me. Divine Mother, come to me. Come to me, oh come to me. I am Om, I am Om, I am Om, I am Om. Omnipresence I am Om. All pervading I am Om. All blessed I am Om. Om, Om, come to me. Come to me, oh come to me. Divine Mother, come to me. Come to me, oh come to me. I am Om, I am Om, I am Om, I am Om. Omnipresence I am Om. All pervading I am Om. All blessed I am Om. Om, come to me, come to me, oh come. Divine Mother, come to me, come to me, oh come to me. I am Om, I am Om, I am Om. Omnipresence I am Om. All pervading I am Om. All blessed I am Om. Om, Om, come to me, come to me, oh come to me. Divine Mother, come to me, come to me, oh come to me. I am Om, I am Om, I am Om. Omnipresence I am Om. All pervading I am Om. All blessed I am Om. Om, come to me, come to me, oh come to me. Divine Mother, come to me, come to me, oh come to me. I am home, omnipresence, I am home, all pervading, I am home, all blessed, I am home. Oh, come to me, come to me, oh, come to me. Divine Mother, come to me, come to me, oh, come to me. I am home, 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 I am We'll take this next chant into meditation. It is called Door of My Heart. The words are: Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee night and day. Chant along. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for one come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee night and day. Night and day, night and day, I look for thee night and day. Let us relax our body by tensing it and then relaxing with double breathing. Now letting go of all tensions, let us observe our breath and then enjoy the peace. We'll begin at 8. Observe your breath as it comes in, as it goes out. Enjoy the pauses in between. If any thoughts come in between, let it go. Come back to the breath. Enjoy the peace. Now let go of any techniques. Be absorbed in the peace, love, joy that you feel. Go deep into the light if you see any. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, welcome again, friends. So, for those who don't know, this is Brahmachari Jamal. I'm Ramesh. We are live here from the Ananda Khandala Monastery, and we have this evening with Ananda monks webinar every alternate Friday, where we take some quotes from the autobiography of a Yogi Daily app, and these quotes are based from this book, Autobiography of a Yogi. If you haven't read it, do read it because it's a wonderful book, and though everyone who has read this book has been changed in some beneficial way. So I will start with the quote which I selected. It's from January 12. The quote goes like this: to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, by King Solomon from the Old Testament. Let me repeat. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. This is young Yogananda, which he was called Mukunda at that time. He was trying to search for a spiritual teacher, and he quoted this line telling that he didn't had the wisdom of King Solomon to comfort him. And King Solomon, for those who don't know, is a king from Old Testament mentioned in Bible, and he's known for asking wisdom from God when he was given the option first. So he's known as the wisest person. So let us go deep into that. Why is it that everything has a time and season, and we have to always wait for certain things, and we can't just grab onto thing whenever we feel like doing it? If you have seen, whenever I believe I share this experience with all of you, that when you're little and a little child, you always want to do things which adults do. You don't like being kept away from things which elders do. Like, I want to go to office like my father goes. I want to do this stuff like you all do. When I grow up, I will do it all. But why grow up? I want to do it now. That's what kids always say. But the reason that kids are not taught higher mathematics when they are in kindergarten is because they might not be ready for it. That's why we may not be ready for whatever we want, and that's why we have to wait for it. That's why there is a season for it. For example, in meditation, we say that one shouldn't meditate on an full stomach. Reason being that if you meditate on a full stomach, you won't be able to go deep. So there's a time for meditation and there is a state for meditation. And we can only do certain things when we have the right discrimination for it. And if we go a little bit deeper into it, why certain times we also wonder why don't certain spiritual experiences come to us. We meditate for long hours, maybe many hours, many days, many years, and certain experiences don't come to us. There's a time and season for everything. It's probably trying to get us ready for our next step, because Paramahansa Yogananda used to say that divine joy is like billions of watts of electrical energy, if you put it in that way. And if your own body is just 50 watts of electrical energy capacity, and if billions of watts of energy goes through it, you will burn, and that won't be enjoyable, right? So you have to be ready, you have to be prepared for receiving whatever want. And another way is for those of you who are preparing for receiving Kriya Yoga. Sometimes it feels like the wait is way too long. Preparation takes a lot of discipline. But if you believe me, it is worth it, because to gain anything of quality, you have to give the equal amount of effort to it. And then the victory becomes even more sweeter. With that, I will move to Jamal. And I'll pass on the microphone.
Thanks, Ramesh. We're all looking forward to having that wonderful victory that is the sweetest of finding God. This quote here is from January 25th on the app. It's from chapter 7, and it's by Padhuri Mahashaya. Before I even read it, I want to say that I've been to that ashram of Badhuri Mahashaya, the levitating saint, in the room that he used to levitate in. And it is very much worth going on pilgrimage and spending time in the rooms of saints where they were, that you can easily, as you begin to meditate, feel the vibrations there, and it will help you go deeper in meditation. Of course, that's just one saint. There's many saints out there who have had many rooms, so the world is your oyster, as they say, in that regard. Many pearls out there to be found. So the quote here is very simple, very short and sweet. God plants his saints sometimes in unexpected soil, lest we think we may reduce him to a rule. And so Badhuri Mahashaya said that because he used to only come outside once a year, and he would only go as far as his doorstep, and I believe he would feed the poor during that one day. And otherwise he would just stay in his room. And now we know that going outside, getting some exercise, some fresh air, sunlight, that these are all important things for being a healthy human being. But Badhuri Mahashaya said that, everybody's going to be unique in himself. And especially the saints actually are unique. You would think that the saints would all kind of be the same, that they've all achieved the same state of consciousness, so in that way they're the same, and that they all live their lives by certain rules. of doing certain things, not doing certain things. So you would think because they're all one with God, they're all living by these certain rules, that they're all the same, but they're not. And in fact, I know a saint who laughs out loud very loudly and will sometimes talk very loudly. And you think of saints who will just be always quiet or maybe not talking at all. And if they're going to laugh, maybe in a little bit of a reserved way. You know, it reminds me of a story that Swami Kriyananda would tell every once in a while. He was visiting some convent, I have no idea where, with many nuns in it. And when he first went in, the nuns were speaking just in a way that you think that someone who's very saintly would speak. I wish I could emulate this tone of voice that he would do, but they would just speak softly, how beautiful it is, and yes, we should always do that. And then some other nun came by and said something like, oh, we have chocolate. And the nun that he was talking to just completely lost that false sense of, oh, yes. Oh, she yelled, chocolate, okay. And she just, kind of lost that false persona. And which means that it wasn't really who she was at all. And it's okay sometimes to fake it until we make it. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, that we have to be true to our own selves. And if we're true to our own selves, then we will be true to God within ourselves. And then He will manifest in a different way than you could ever imagine. So don't think that you're going to become an automaton just by finding God, that you're not. And life's going to get way more fun if you will do that. Another point that I wanted to bring up on this particular topic is that as you go on the spiritual path, you'll start to see that there's all kinds of rules that you should, as Ramesh was saying, that it's better if you wait until you meditate, not to eat and then meditate. Oh gosh, I mean, we're not supposed to drink alcohol, obviously, and we don't smoke cigarettes. And I mean, those are just very obvious and simple rules. But also you begin to understand that you want to watch your thoughts, and that you want to watch who you associate with, and you want to watch what kind of music you listen to, and what kind of food you eat. And the list can go on and on. But it's interesting to think that Christ, in that particular incarnation 2,000 years ago, that he was non-veg, that he was eating meat, he was even drinking a little bit of wine here and there. And it makes one, now I'm not suggesting that we should all start eating meat and drinking wine, but it makes you think that there has to be some order to the rules. And it's part of the path for us each to figure out which rule is the most important for us, which rule is the least important. And because I only have 1 minute left, I'm going to just tell you what the most important rule is right away, and you can order your life from that. And the most important rule is to love God. And then the second one is to share that love. Love God in your neighbors. And so learn to love Him within in meditation. Learn to love him or her, if you wish, outwardly as you serve your fellow mankind. And if you can really adhere to that, just learning how to love God, all of the rest of the rules, they'll fall in place easily. Yes, you should study a little bit. It's a hard thing to find God, and so take as much knowledge and wisdom as you can, but don't be too hard on yourself. Don't stress out if you break some little rule and you didn't do exactly 2 hours of Hong Sa today, and Master said that if you want to find God in this incarnation, you should practice Hong Sa for 2 hours every day. That there's a time and place, as Ramesh said, for everything. So you'll certainly find your way, but remember to love God. I'll hand it back over here.
Thank you, Jamal. A small addition. Jamal said being true to one's own self. Swami Kriyananda added that to thy own funky self be true. So don't worry about being rule breakers. And the next quote I chose is from February 4, and it's very interesting one. This is Jagdish Chandra Bose speaking to young Yogananda. Plants have sensitive nervous system and a varied emotional life. Love, hate, joy, fear, pleasure, pain, excitability, stupor, and countless appropriate responses to stimuli are as universal in plants as in animals. Isn't that interesting? Here is a scientist well respected in India, Jagdish Chandra Bose, telling us that plants, whom many people during those times, I believe 19, just the beginning of the 19th century, they are telling that plant at that time people used to think plants are just inanimate objects. They don't even respond to um, we talking, they don't talk, they don't move, they are just other inanimate objects. But here is a scientist who is actually demonstrating using a machine which he invented called Bose cresograph. And this machine, it measured the electrical impulses from objects, from plants, from human beings, from animals, from metals. And he would actually put a poison on a plant and see how those impulses were. He would remove that poison and see how those impulses were. And every time those things were done, the plants would behave in different ways, indicating pain or joy, happiness or sorrow. So they are sensitive beings. And I have seen that plants which are kept in areas with heavy music tend to be somewhat pale, and you can say that they're upset. On the other hand, plants which are kept in the company of bright sunlight or people who are kind to them, water them regularly, and you can say love them as their own children, those plants tend to thrive and they give good fruit too. And again, what I would like to add to that is Luther Burbank, to him the autobiography of Yogi is dedicated. He actually grew a variety of cactus without thorns. He said that cactuses grow in deserts, and as a measure of protection, they have thorns around them. So Luther Burbank, he planted cactuses and he would talk with them consciously, telling, "You don't need to be afraid. I'm there for you. You don't need the thorns to protect yourself. I will protect you." He gave them love, consciously giving them love. And the cactuses grew without the thorns. So it was a amazing, you can say, discovery during those days that plants could respond to human beings and emotions. So isn't that applicable as much to us that if plants are that much sensitive, humans who are much more aware than plants are also very much sensitive, and they react to our feelings which may not be spoken out completely. You see, if just we move from plants to animals little bit, animals tends to sense what our intentions are. I've seen many a times dogs who start barking at people without no reason. The person might not have said anything, but if you look deeply, that person might have some ulterior motives or some disharmonious aura around himself. And dogs will wag their tails, be all happy around people who just are, you can say, benevolent, happy, wanting to give to others, and dogs will appreciate that. So animals, plants, they sense these things, and we humans too do that. And hence we should be very careful when we are interacting with our brothers, sisters, relatives, friends, strangers, because they are perceiving our intentions. And if we have kind intentions, it will always lead to beneficial uh, results in the end. And who wants to be angry, harmful, or have any kind of negativity in them? It just brings us down, isn't it? So let us take example from JC Bose and try to be kind to everyone.
Okay, thanks, Ramesh. That thought that animals can be much more aware of our aura, our energy, maybe even our thoughts, leads us into this next quote. This one is from a perfume saint displays his wonders. And in the beginning of that chapter, before Paramahansa Yogananda meets the perfume saint, he has a very deep conversation with a wandering sadhu. And this is one of the lines from that. I have long exercised an honest introspection, the exquisitely painful approach to wisdom. Self-scrutiny, relentless observance of one's thoughts, is a stark and shattering experience. It pulverizes the stoutest ego. But true self-analysis mathematically operates to produce seers. The way of self-expression, individual acknowledgments, results in egotists, sure of the right to their private interpretations of God and the universe. You know, this thought has been kind of on and off in my spiritual career, you could say, over the years. And right now it's on, and I've just been thinking about it a lot the last couple of weeks. And that is, imagine that you had a printer kind of hardwired to your brain, or whatever. Today we have wireless. We don't even need the cord anymore. It could work on Bluetooth. But this printer, that it would just, all of your thoughts throughout the day, it would just be printing them out. And at the end of the day, you'd have a big bundle of all these papers with all your thoughts. The first time I heard that idea, I just thought, oh, I cringed, and I thought, no way. I wouldn't want anybody to see that bundle of papers that I think all kinds of crazy things. And if people were to know those, that I would just be so embarrassed. And then after a while, I lived with Swami Kriyananda, who did know my thoughts. And that made me really want to learn to change my thoughts, because he was aware of them. However, that being said, those saints who do know those type of things, they're the most kind and loving people, and they would never judge you for anything. But anyway, I still felt that I needed to take control of this situation. And so I began to really want to be able to control my thoughts. And I realized that was very difficult. Key to being able to control your thoughts is pranayama. That if you can learn to control the energy in your body, you can learn to control your thoughts. But back to this reading, it says that if you constantly watch your thoughts, that it will pulverize the stoutest ego. And so as you begin to meditate, first you begin to see that these thoughts, that they're just coming, and you don't know where they're coming from or where they go. But you will begin, even with Hong Sa, just by watching, to be able to calm these down. And ultimately, even a simple technique like Hong Sa will help you understand that you are not these thoughts, that you're something beyond the thoughts. Once in a satsang that Swami Kriyananda gave in Chennai, he asked a very simple question, and it was, where do thoughts come from? And somehow it just blew me away. I just wasn't sure where. Now, of course, someone with a big ego would say, well, thoughts come from me, from my brain. But I was evolved enough at that point to know that thoughts certainly weren't coming from me, that I was just a channel for thoughts, just like a radio transmitter. But I couldn't really comprehend where were they all coming from. Also, I'd also read an autobiography of a yogi many times that thoughts are universally and not individually rooted, meaning that somewhere there's a big reservoir of every single thought that could ever exist, that will ever exist. And so Swamiji asking, where do thoughts come from? Somehow intuitively I knew that within the self, that they're center everywhere, circumference nowhere, but how do we access that? And anyway, that was the beginning of me really starting to think deeply about the fact that we know matter very well, but matter itself, we also know, science is telling us, is nothing more than condensed energy. And as a yogi, you'll learn to manipulate energy and understand and feel energy and control energy and learn how to control matter to varying degrees. But then we also know that energy itself is controlled by the mind, and we'll learn to control the mind. But thoughts themselves, that universal reservoir is consciousness, that everything first starts in consciousness or of consciousness. Once someone also asked Swami Kriyananda, how do you define consciousness? And he said, it's the one thing that you can't define. That's very interesting. You can it's like putting clothes on an invisible man, that those clothes will sort of define the man. You'll get an outline of them, and the more tight those clothes are, the more you'll be able to see that man, but you can't actually see the man. And so consciousness, you can call it awareness, understanding, things like that, but you can't actually define it. It's very interesting. Anyway, it's within you, and this is where all thoughts come from. And the final point that I want to make on this particular line is that if you really begin to watch your thoughts, it will pulverize the stoutest ego, that you'll realize you're something that's way beyond all of your thoughts. But in this same quote, he urges us to be careful, because it also could produce a great egotist. That as we begin to watch our thoughts and we begin to learn how to control ourselves and our environment with the power of mind, that we can begin to think that we really know what's going on and we really know how to do things, but we will have missed the point. that we're something beyond all of the thoughts. And so be careful as you grow spiritually that there are a lot of pitfalls, but if you have a guru, love your guru, keep loving God, and let that be your guide, you'll be plenty safe. I'm well over my time. I'll hand this back to Ramesh.
Thank you so much. Haven't you noticed we keep coming back to the thought of loving God as the first rule above all? And do read the book Autobiography of a Yogi. If you, we will try to the people who are attending this that we can share the link for it on free online, and we'll try that. And the quote which I have selected is, it again comes to the topic of divine love. This is Sri Yukteswar telling to Yogananda. Before I read it out, I will tell the background. So when Yogananda was searching for his guru, the first time he met Sri Yukteswar in a crowded marketplace. So Sri Yukteswar took him to his room and said, "You are my disciple," and they had this great reunion, you can say. And Sri Yukteswar at the end of it said to Yogananda, "I gave you my unconditional love." And he asked Yogananda, "Do you give me yours?" And Yogananda replied, "I do give you my unconditional love, sir, eternally." To which Yukteswarji replies in perfect wisdom, "Ordinary love is selfish, darkly rooted in desires and satisfactions. Divine love is without condition, without boundary, without change. The flux of human heart is gone forever at the transfixing touch of pure love." And it is very deep, isn't it? When he said, "Ordinary love is selfish and darkly rooted in desires." How does it seem selfish? Let us take the example. Ordinary love usually happens when we think ourselves as I loving something separate from us. You can say a brother loving his sister, or a husband loving his wife, or a person loving his favorite football team. In all of these things, there is a separation between the two entities. So, for example, if a brother loves his sister, there is a thought that I, that ego, is loving certain another ego. And with that thought also comes the thought of expectation that because I love such and such person, they should reciprocate it in some way. They should satisfy some of my desires. So there the thought of I, selfishness comes. And because that selfishness comes, when that love is not reciprocated, when that favor is not returned, we become upset, and we, you can say, as a roller coaster, we go up and down in those relationships. And let's be honest, most of the relationships in this world are based on that kind of love, because we are not perfect and we work towards that. But Shri gave us the clue that divine love is without boundary, without condition, without change, and it is kind of an unconditional love. And how do we know such love? Where can we experience such love? Jesus Christ embodied that love when he was crucified, when he said, "Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do." He could see himself in every one of them. He was one with all of them. And I can only speak of it because I don't have experience of it. But if you study the life of Paramahansa Yogananda ji, he was an incarnation of divine love, also known as Prema Avatar. He showed love every time, in all conditions, all situations. Even the people who were, you can say, self-declared enemies of him, he would just show kindness and never ever try to harm them in any way. For example, once a childhood friend of Yogananda, who he brought to America to spread his teachings over there, and he trusted him so much, giving so many responsibilities. And this friend eventually became victim of wrong opinionated attitudes and left Yogananda, sued him in court asking for money or something. And just this relationship fell apart, and this was kind of a very deep friendship, you can say, spiritual friendship. But Yogananda ji, even after that, every year he would send a box of mangoes to that friend every year, and that person would return the box unopened. But every year Yogananda will keep sending on those mangoes. This was a sign of his love for his friend. In spite of everything, without condition, without boundary, his love was going out to his friend. And even on his last day on this planet, Yogananda ji, before leaving his body, he met another person who had tried to harm the reputation of Yogananda. So this person met Yogananda. This was like an Indian ambassador had come to United States. So in that reception, Yogananda ji saw this person and he said, "Remember, I will always love you. Why don't we work together?" So in spite of everything, people, you can say, people can hurl stones at a saint, but the saint will see the stones as games playing with his little children. And in my own experience of divine love, this is a little bit of a trick I played, you can say, but I won't recommend you doing it. I had this exam going to come, and I had to study 10 questions for it. And I was kind of very tired because for previous exams I had been burning the midnight oil. So I decided that I have, say, 3 hours, and I wanted to meditate too. So I said to Divine Mother, I will meditate for 2 hours. I will, from all of this 10 things I had to study, I would choose the easiest one part, and I would study that very part, and I will let go of everything else. And I did that. And the next day I go to my examination place, and each and every one of my friends are going through their notes, revising stuff, getting worried on all. And I had just studied one thing, so I wasn't really worried. You can say I was indifferent to the results, but I wasn't worried. And people are thinking, oh, you know everything. But I only knew what I knew. And in this thing, we had to, there would be chits, and we had to pick chits without knowing which one we would get. So I picked the one without expecting whatever I get. I thought I might just mess up, and I picked, and it was the easiest question which I had studied. And it was for me a sign of divine love, because I hadn't done anything to earn it as such, but without condition, without boundary. And it came just because God gives us more than when we know. With that, I pass on to Jamal.
Thanks. That was very beautiful. And in fact, I'm not even sure I want to say anything after that. I guess I'll just quickly say something, but it's just really the wisdom that we've been given from these masters about divine love. It's just unbelievable. Okay, let's see here. Where am I supposed to? I'm supposed to be, yes. This is January 14th. Good and evil is the challenging riddle which life places sphinx-like before every intelligence. Attempting no solution, most men pay forfeit with their lives, penalty now, even as in the days of Thebes. Here and there a towering lonely figure never cries defeat. From the Maya of duality, he plucks the cleaveless truth of unity. And, you know, I enjoy this one for so many different reasons, but one of them is that here and there a towering lonely figure never cries defeat. And I hope that I can urge you to be that lonely, towering figure who will never give up. That Master said a saint is a sinner who never gives up. He also somewhere said something to the effect that I don't ask you to be perfect, I just ask that you try. And the whole thing on this spiritual path is to just keep trying. That it's actually very difficult to even stay on the spiritual path, let alone graduate and become one with God. But just to even stay an entire incarnation is a difficult thing to do. But if one will make up his mind, as maybe many of you know Jayaji, that he one day just inwardly told God, I will give you this entire incarnation. And he stuck to that. And you can see what a great man that he's become in sticking to that resolution. So that if we can just vow that we will never give up, that then eventually we will get there. And of course, it's not going to be easy, but nothing good and worthwhile in life is easy. And then also, of course, this world, good and evil is the challenging riddle which life places sphinx-like. It's definitely challenging. A little just quote, I don't even know if it's a quote, but it said that even Satan or even the devil quotes the scriptures. And could you imagine that you're meeting someone and you think he's a holy guy because he's sitting here telling you things out of the Gita, but it's Satan himself. And the thing with that little statement there is that it's really hard to know truth. but we can do it. And the key is to go within yourself and to perfect your intuition. And we learn how to perfect our intuition, and we learn how to find truth by making mistakes and doing things that aren't true and making wrong decisions. But it's quite all right. It's part of the path. But the thing is, once we make a mistake, we acknowledge it, we get up, and we just keep going. And if you can maintain that attitude throughout your entire incarnation, you will go very, very far, and you will know a great and a deep joy of God's love and of God's presence in your heart. So that's enough for this evening. It's been a great joy to be with you. I would like for us, though, just to close by thinking of this world. You can visualize this planet, and we'll simply just rub our hands together and chant Om 3 times. You send your light, your love, your peace out to this entire planet. Om.